Happy Sunday, everyone. And yes, that track is indeed a banger. Thank you very much for being here. Gage, did you end up making that into your ringtone? You want to, don't you? Isn't that the text I got?
I want that just when I come into any room. That's what I want playing.
That actually would be great, wouldn't it? All right, it is the Pit Stop Pals. It is episode 10 as we've got another Grand Prix to recap. And then, of course, coming up, the Canadian Grand Prix just around the corner, which in some way, shape, or form, Latifi is going to completely blow it on home soil. And we'll see how many penalties he gets in Canada. So that'll be interesting. Gager, what's storyline number one for you coming out of the Azerbaijan old Baku GP?
Well, when I look at the board, I got lots again, Dusty, but I think the biggest one, there's little subplots to it, but it's Ferrari. Yeah. It's Ferrari.
What a disaster.
Oh my gosh, just complete, utter shock of what happened. Because, you watching just qualifying and looking at Leclerc and Sainz, they looked good, setting themselves up. What's the stat? Like Leclerc, that's 5 poles and he didn't win any one of them. Like, it's just
how ridiculous is that?
It's so crazy. And then to see Carlos, engine trouble. And then Charles just later on looking good, looks like the strategy is working. He's ahead. He's a couple laps on the older hard tires that might have, who knows what that would have looked like later on. But then, man, engine trouble and has to retire both cars. Just the whole championship just thrown completely out of whack. And it's funny how they mentioned like this was what Red Bull was kind of dealing with too at the beginning of the year, and now Ferrari's dealing with the same thing.
If you're Leclerc right now, and with what happened in Monaco and your team screwing you over in the pits, and now your car gives out on you, like you're sitting here with what's happened recently, and it's not really on you, any of it. Like that's got to be like I'm watching that this morning, and I was a little bit behind it, and I was getting it before I flew home. I watched the entire race on F1 TV. It was excellent, obviously. But I thought he was going to lose his mind, man. Like, I was just like, come on, man, like, get pissed off here. Because, I just seemed kind of calm and cool, and I was just like, I'd be losing my shit right now if I was Charles Leclerc.
Oh, it probably in the debriefing room, he probably let loose a little bit at that point. Both drivers would have, but you know what, Desi? I think a little bit of what will make him not so as mad or subside the anger a little bit is the fact that that's 5 Ferrari power units that failed today, right? So you look at Alfa Romeo, you look at the Haas, like it's just there. I don't know what's wrong, and I think you saw Leclerc just being so disappointed because they're going to have to take penalties soon for these new power units. So that's the most frustrating thing, is even knowing that you're going to be further back from possibly like the front row because of you're taking new power units and having to take grid penalties because of it, because they've already taken a bunch and the thing doesn't work. That's the other thing. Like, you don't know if you're going to be able to finish the race. So, man, what a disastrous day for Ferrari and the teams that are using these power units. It's crazy.
I thought it was a great shot. The broadcast did a great shot where there was, I can't remember how many laps are left in the race, but everybody else is still competing in a race. And they cut to the shot of Ferrari, and both garages are empty. The pit wall completely empty. And it's just like, geez, it's that bad. Like, they packed up, they'd gone home, and the race was still on. I just thought, if you're Ferrari and you've got these constructor or individual driver championships and these aspirations this year, and in a big race like this, both your guys are out that early, man, that's a major bounce back needed here right away, considering the fact that Leclerc, from a driver's ability, he's driving that car, I think, better than anybody on the circuit this year. But they just cannot finish. It's unbelievable to have 5 poles and not come away at the top of the podium on any of them.
Well, even off the start too, you saw Checo go nuts and
nice start there.
Get great start by Checo, and even hearing what he had to say, and some of the experts in afterwards said he probably pushed those tires a little bit too much off that first lap, and because the tires weren't at temperature. It cost him, and that's the reason why kind of they said that possibly Max could catch him a little bit quicker. Max looked like he had a better pace, although they said Checo was having a tough time on those tires. Maybe that was just because the start that he had.
Yeah. Okay, maybe. Let's dive into that then. So, I mean, the story today, two opposite storylines here. One, Ferrari disaster. On the other side, for Red Bull, they get their dream finish. Their number one driver finishes first. Their number two driver finishes second. The Checo, I mean, right at the beginning, he slides in, he takes off, and he distanced himself, right? Like he took off there. He was I thought he was going to kind of run away with the entire thing. And then you mentioned, they said, oh, maybe he's having trouble on those tires, and that's why when Max went by, we heard him say no fight, and Max kind of went by, and that was it. Do you 100% buy into Checo struggling on the tires a little bit? We'll just let him focus on second today and let Max take this one, or do you think this was a little bit of payback for what happened to Max last race, and now we don't have to listen to Daddy complain all week?
Well, yeah,
the car looks fine. Like the one race he doesn't win, his dad said, "Oh, the car's not meant for him." Every other race that he's started, he's finished at the top.
Yeah, I don't know. They Christian Horner was mentioning how they could have, because both cars were, I think, set up a little bit differently. Max's, from what they said, was better set up for the actual race, right? So. And Checo was more set up for grabbing pole in the qualifying and putting in good laps that way, because he did put in fastest lap of the day, right? So with supposedly the slower pace car. So there's something to that, I think. One of the looking at I spent a lot of time on F1. I won't lie to you today, Dusty. I found out some new stuff on F1 TV that's ridiculous. But I watched a lot of helmet cams today, and the Red Bull hardly any porpoising compared to tons of other cars. Like it's ridiculous. And the worst thing, my back hurts listening to Russell and Lewis Hamilton in their car. Like, it drowns out the sound of the engine. They're porpoising so hard. Ooh. And it's terrible. And Lewis was complaining about his back. I can see it. Like Daniel Ricciardo said, it's like being dribbled by a NBA player real low to the ground by a basketball. Like, he even felt it. And so I watched a little bit of McLaren. And one thing I got to say, because I was hard on Lewis Hamilton for a while there, saying, oh, he's got no, he doesn't like to take chances. And what they say with how they set up the cars, I think Lewis is just trying to get the most out of this car and just putting it in a window it's just porpoising and going nuts. And they talked about Russell's car, and he's just more about, let's set this up so I can compete, not win, but at least I can stay there. So I have to take back what I said about Lewis. I think he's trying to get that car to get the maximum effort, and I think you have to probably pull back on it a little bit, because Lando Norris was saying, hey, we all have to deal with this, but we can't ride these cars so low or we're just going to be bottoming out the whole time.
That's extremely frustrating. I mean, we're sitting here now. We're on episode 10. We've mentioned porpoising in essentially every single episode so far, Gager. It's not going anywhere, right? Like, it's
yeah, no.
If it was, they would have sorted this thing out. So I mean, I know there's a lot of excitement about the new cars, but if we were to go back to last season, which was a phenomenal season as well, especially for us who were just kind of jumping into it, very rarely do I remember any sort of talk about porpoising. In fact, I think it was kind of later in the year where Tim Hauraney had kind of tweeted out, and they're like, yeah, a little bit of porpoising. And I've been watching the entire season. I was like, tell me about this. What's this? Like, I had no idea. And now, I mean, you said it. I mean, a lot of people cannot get away from this right now. Is it surprising to you that some of these teams haven't been able to figure it out, or is it just a matter of this is simply what they have to deal with the rest of the way?
Well, why is Red Bull so good at not porpoising so much and having such great straight line speed? I mean, I watched Alpine with Fernando Alonso, and I think he got up to 347 kph today on the straightaway, just because of that. Alpine was just a beast, but porpoising not as bad as Mercedes, but everyone seems to get a little bit more of a handle on it. I just don't know how Mercedes could have gone into this season so ill prepared compared to the other cars, and how they they rectified a lot of the issues with it, and I mean, you look at their heads in these helmet cams, and just it's ridiculous compared to Checo's and Max's. They're I mean, they're not steady, I won't say that, but compared to the rest, man, they especially on like a street course, there was 2 parts in that straightaway where there was some bumps and everyone seemed to porpoise, but man, it would be, I can see why Lewis was holding his back, given interviews after the race. It was ridiculous.
I was just watching the pass of Verstappen on Checo just right now. It popped up in front of me, and you see a little bit. But during the race, when I was watching Lewis, and they were on Lewis quite a bit there because he was trying to pass a few guys a couple times, and the head was just like, just how can you, like, at the beginning of the year when they were doing all the testing, they're like, oh, there's some porpoising. Maybe because I'm still learning the sport, I thought, oh well, they're doing testing. Like this is something that testing will completely get sorted out. And now we're sitting here watching these guys after races being like, oh my God, it's fascinating to me as somebody who's newish to the sport. So I'm very interested to see, how they eventually get away from this for all the cars, because that's what you'd like to see. I mean, you don't want to see some of these guys having to deal with what they're dealing with. Now, with that being said, I mean, Mercedes, an interesting day. Like, George Russell's amazing because I'm not sure I've seen him on a broadcast this year. And it's like today. Like his race today, they didn't need to mention him because he was never close to passing anybody. There was never anybody really close to passing him. He just put it on cruise control, watched the 2 Ferraris go down, and instead of finishing 5th, he finishes 3rd. And Lewis Hamilton, I think, got driver of the day. So I guess it's a satisfying day for Mercedes. I just don't know if they kind of earned that one today.
See, this is I get all excited. If I were to not watch this race, and missed it, like say I just missed this and saw Mercedes finish, I'd be like, oh my God, here we go. Like they're back, and it's just, it's amazing that they still have a competitive car, but man, it must be so frustrating for them. I mean, maybe not for Russell because I mean he's not driving a Williams anymore, but it's crazy how he just gets into these like quiet spots and just goes for a Sunday cruise and finishes in the top 5 every time. That's another podium for him. I mean, what a season. I didn't see this happening by any means. If you were to ask anyone, it would be at least Lewis would be in that place where he's on the podium. Yeah, maybe 3rd and some 4ths and 5ths, but man, Russell's been what they call him. They call him Mr. Consistent. That's what he is. Yeah. And he's dealing with the same type of thing. But I did watch on the helmet cam, there is a porpoising a lot, but not as much as Lewis is. So I think he's riding a little bit higher, and Lewis is trying to get as low as possible, lots of downforce, and so he can pick up speed in the corners.
There's a chance here that if both Red Bulls and both Ferraris end up not finishing a race, George Russell could win it if he stays consistent the rest of the way. It's funny because if you look at the overall standings right now, Verstappen's at 150, Checo's at 129, Leclerc's at 116, and then just 17 points back of Leclerc is George Russell right now. So if Ferrari continues to have their major issues, I mean, there's a chance that Russell could all of a sudden be 3rd here before it's all said and done. Overall, I mean, it was another typical consistent race from Russell. Would you consider this a step in the right direction for Lewis from what you saw and what he had to say today, Gage? Or is it kind of just a hard day that he fought through and ended up having a couple cars that didn't finish? And you look at who he was trying to track down and work his way up past, and, not the Red Bulls or anything along those lines. So day for Hamilton, or do you think you have to be happy overall?
I think he has to be happy. Just with the strategy, he was able to get onto the reason why he blew past Gasly is because of their decision to pit earlier and get those on, and he looked great passing him. I mean, and moving up from where he was. I thought it was a really good. Vettel was really good today in the Aston Martin too. So I mean, it's not where Lewis is used to being. What is he, 6th in the Drivers' Championship right now? But I think you got to take these, like he says, these small victories of what he's able to do with such a piece of crap car. So just, I mean, imagine if they can kind of get it there. And I don't know. I was thinking today, maybe it's they get back and get to the summer break and try to figure some stuff out. But man, it's got to be so frustrating for him after every race having Toto Wolff come on and apologizing again for the lack of a car to give him. It's just
At some point you say, okay, man, enough with your stories. Like, stuff him in a sack, get me a car, make the adjustments that have to be made. If you look at what's happened with Lewis so far this year, he started with a third. It's his only podium of the entire year, which is crazy. Last year he had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So far this year he's got 1. He finished 10th, 4th, 13th, 6th, 5th, 8th, and 4th. So he's been in that 4 to 6 range with that 1-8 here in the last 4 races as well. So you did mention a guy in there that I think is probably on your board as well. I want to talk a little bit about Gasly. And if you're Gasly today, you're happy with the entire weekend, right?
Oh, he had I think he had something to prove this weekend with last week with Checo signing the deal and kind of leaving his future in limbo a little bit, right? So where is he going to go? And they talked about this on F1 TV. If you don't have it, get it today. We got to get them to sponsor.
Yeah, it's amazing. Sign up. Sign up.
It's ridiculous. But they're saying, well, what does he do? You know, they talked about, they're looking maybe at McLaren, but then you have Ricciardo kind of having a good day back. And how does he see his future in the next few years? Or is AlphaTauri a good place to be right now? Like, they are somewhat in the middle of the pack. Does he wait for a seat with some of the top teams to open up? So kind of a weird kind of decision for him. I'm sure he doesn't want to, go to a Williams car and fight for the the trail end. And
you can't do that.
No, he's in a competitive car and he's done really well with it. So
if you're not going nothing against McLaren, but if you're not going up to Ferrari, Mercedes, or Red Bull, AlphaTauri is not a horrible place to be, I would think. I mean, unless McLaren's throwing a ton of money at you to come and sit in that second car next to Lando. But, maybe patience is the play. And now he's been patient for a couple of years for sure. But yeah, I think overall he's got to be happy with the weekend. I think you make a good point on something to prove for Pierre Gasly. You did mention McLaren in there, Gager. It was very interesting seeing those two cars back to back and Ricciardo saying, if this is all the pace he's got, I've got more, let me go. And then he was being pushed there and he wanted to get by Lando. Like, well, we want Lando to come in and pit and jump ahead of Alonso. And then things completely fell apart for Lando. Managed to work his way back up there. And in the end, after a very wild up and down day, McLaren does get double points from these two guys. But, if you had to check some boxes for McLaren today, I'd say the big check mark probably goes to Danny Ricciardo.
Back in the points, drove well, had great pace at the beginning of the race, where he could have gone past Lando. I think he was told to stay put, and so they could do the undercut, right? So way better result for the Papayas. It's always great. Like, everyone talks about Danny Ricciardo must be a great guy. Because everyone, when he doesn't do well, it's not like they get on him they're like, oh, poor Daniel. Like, everyone just loves this guy. So good to see him finishing the points. But there's, I don't know. We watched last year or this year of Drive to Survive, and we heard a lot of animosity between the two drivers, and they went on and said, well, we love each other. But hearing the radio and chatter between them both, they want to beat each other really, really bad, which I think is great. Like, I would have much rather seen Checo kind of get his elbows out before Max, and that it said no fighting there, and see how that plays out. But I like it. I think it's great. It'll be great on Netflix next year. That's for sure.
Lando with 50 points so far, and Danny Ricciardo with 15 after getting some points today as well. I'm trying to think what else you could have on the old Pit Stop Pals big board there, Gage, or what else haven't we hit on?
Well, just a few funny things that, like, these are gazillion-dollar cars, and
Oh
so
yeah.
much money is put into this. And the old fix it with the duct tape with Sonoda's car. I almost fell out of my chair with these guys duct taping and telling no DRS because they've taped this thing up. And I heard the stewards were running down saying you can't do that, you can't. And there could have been a, I'm not sure what kind of black flag they have to wave for this, but a kind of a dangerous thing. But it's good to see, because I've duct tape there's a lot of fix-its
Yeah.
that I've used duct tape. I'm glad to see that they can use that on F1 and that's still considered okay.
3 different spots.
Yeah, 3 different. And it was funny. They're all trying to rip it. And Yuki, like, again, if you can go into the helmet cam and hear him just swearing at these guys and what's going on and stuff, because he can't see, he doesn't know what's going on, and then they tell him not to use his DRS. It was pretty comical. I thought that was a great time. And the other one, Dusty, as they talked about, Max, just complete boss moves by Red Bull at the end of the race. Like, they're asking Max, hey, can you slow down a bit, and like, don't go so fast, and don't use the DRS. And for everyone, all the other teams, to be hearing that these guys are so far ahead that they don't want any mechanical issues, and they're going so fast that they need to slow down just in case. Like, that's just got to be so disheartening for all these other teams to hear.
Can you imagine Ferrari already being at the pub having a couple of beers, watching the end of this race here, and Red Bull being like, just save the DRS for now, I guess?
Yeah. No,
come on.
It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like, so boss move by Red Bull to let everyone know who's number one. And I texted you today, Dusty, with that thing that you can do on F1 TV.
The greatest thing ever. I was going to say, we have to wrap up with that. That's amazing.
It's and I completely by accident, just fat thumbs going on. But you know how you swipe left? I know you don't normally swipe left, Dusty. You swipe right. But when you swipe left and open up the list, you can go to the helmet cam, click on it, close the window, go back in and click on it again, and it flips back to Crofty's commentary. So you don't just hear the car, you hear Crofty talking, and you can watch.
So you have to click on the driver twice?
You click on the driver once, so it goes to the helmet cam,
and
then close it, and then go back, and you'll see a little icon in there. It's like these little lines. Click the same driver again, and it'll click back to Crofty, like the announcer.
Wow.
So it's great. Like, because when Lewis was passing, and I clicked to Lewis's cam and I messed up, and all of a sudden I heard Crofty talking, and it was next level, absolutely next level today.
That is exciting. I'm gonna have to try it. I'm gonna have to try to track that down. Then you could just have them on the whole race and just be flipping back and forth. It'd be absolutely
that's what I did.
Which is what you want. That's what you want, right? Like,
exactly.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, just off the start, I think I'm gonna try it for Montreal. Whoever I'm kind of got in my pool I'm looking at off the start. I'm gonna have because nothing's better. The only thing better is you at a CFL game. I know this, Dusty, but when Crofty announces the start of a F1 race, it's one of the greatest things in sports.
Well, let's see what Crofty can do with 4 James Butler touchdowns in the first half against the Edmonton Elks. That was quite the scene last night. Canadian Grand Prix. What do you? I mean, this is exciting. We're back here in Canada for the first time since we became fans, which is really exciting. Gage, what's storyline number 1 for you, or what are you most excited about over the next 3, 4, 5 days?
I just want to keep an eye on what this power unit is with Ferrari. I think that's the main thing going in. From all accounts, it's a similar track to Baku, so long straightaway, some slow corners and stuff like that. See if they can get back. But man, all these other teams too. Like, that's the thing. Like, we saw Bottas, had such a great start. And the Haas cars were so great with this power, and you can see they've just been lacking over the last few races, just because I think there's major problems with this. They got to get this thing fixed.
Yeah, certainly something. They can't come in and have another disaster, because they are right now bordering on not being in that mix anymore. Like, that's where it's getting to because it's not like they're struggling and they're ending up out of the race and Red Bull's having any sort of issues. When Ferrari's not there, it's a walk. Like, there's nobody else that is challenging Red Bull. So there's nobody helping Ferrari here along the way. So they got to take care of business themselves. So that's one of the storylines heading into the Canadian Grand Prix. I almost called it the Canadian Open, which wrapped up today with Rory McIlroy winning the Canadian Open. So a few big weeks for Canada. That's very exciting. And maybe some exciting news next week with the Pit Stop Pals as well. Make sure you watch Twitter for that. Gager, I'm going to let you get right back onto that F1 TV. I'm sure you've got about 9 more helmet cams to watch before bedtime tonight.
How did you know?
Exactly. Talk to you later, buddy.
All right, buddy.